So, out in Santa Cruz, California, there's this really special place called Common Roots Farm. And let me tell you, they're growing a lot more than just vegetables. They're growing community, purpose, and a powerful answer to a very, very important question.
It all kicked off with this one really powerful question. How do you have a meaningful day when you're an adult living with a significant disability? It's a question that hits right at the heart of what it means to have a purpose, right? And as we're about to see, this single question was basically the seed from which an entire farm grew.
So, this was the question that the farm's founders, Heidi and Philippe, were asking, specifically for their son Noah. They were looking for an answer not just for him, but for so many others in the same boat. And their solution wasn't just to find something that already existed. No, they decided to build something brand new, literally from the ground up.
So, 22. Why is that number so important? Well, here in the US, turning 22 is a huge, huge deal for a person with a developmental disability. It's the moment they age out of the school system. And often, it's like a safety net they've known their entire lives just vanishes.
Yeah, they actually call it the support cliff, and it's a perfect name for it, right? It's this sudden, scary drop off that can leave people feeling totally isolated without the community or the structure they've always had. And look, we're not just talking about finding a hobby here. This is about tackling a massive gap in our system.
Okay, so you're facing this huge challenge, this support cliff. What do you do? Well, for Heidi and Philippe, the answer was kind of surprising, but also beautiful. A farm. So let's dig into how that vision really took root. Okay, so here's the official mission. It's a market farm, which is important. It means they're a real business, selling produce. But the parts that really stand out to me are join with others and build relationships. See, right from the start, community was baked into the DNA of this whole thing. And their whole mission really stands on these three pillars. First, be a trusted local source for amazing food and flowers. Second, and this is the big one, include people with disabilities in every single part of the process. And third, do it all in a way that's good for the planet. You see how they all weave together? You can't really have one without the others.
Okay, so it's one thing to say you want to be inclusive. That's great. But how do you actually do that in a place like a farm, which can be pretty physically demanding? Let's get into it.
What I love is how thoughtful their approach is. It's not just a vague idea, it's a real system. First, they designed the farm itself, the landscape, to be accessible for everyone. Then they got creative with the tools and methods, things like wider rows and raised beds. And finally, and this is probably the most crucial part, they built this culture of welcome. It's all about creatively figuring out how to match a person's abilities to the right task on the farm. And this chart, it just nails the difference in their whole philosophy. See, on a lot of farms, it's all about speed. How fast can you get it done? But at Common Roots, they might take a little longer to do something, but they're not willing to compromise on two things: the quality of the food and the inclusion of every single person on their team.
And that right there is the key. This isn't about giving people busy work or token jobs. It's about striving for real excellence, growing the best stuff possible, while also being creative and patient enough to figure out how every single person can be a real, contributing part of that success.
So, what's the result of all this? Well, it goes way beyond just a basket of fresh vegetables. The real harvest here is the incredible impact it has on people.
I love this quote. It just perfectly captures the shift that happens. They go from being seen as people you might feel sorry for to being your neighbors, the people who grow the best tasting tomatoes you've ever had. Their status changes because their work is real, it's valuable. And here's where the magic really happens for the whole community. It turns out that when you're just working side by side with someone, pulling weeds, planting seeds, all those barriers we put up between each other, they just kind of melt away. Real relationships start to grow. And for the participants themselves, the benefits are just huge. They get this incredible sense of purpose from the daily rhythm of the farm, whether it's their job to feed the chickens or harvest the first strawberries of the season. They get to connect with nature, and they feel that deep, real satisfaction of knowing they're doing important work for their community. Now, the story of Common Roots Farm is amazing, but it's not meant to be just something you admire from afar. It's really an open invitation for all of us to get involved. And look at all the ways you can jump in and be a part of this. You could become a CSA customer and get their incredible produce. You could shop at their farm stand, volunteer your time. Heck, you could even just tell your friends about what they're doing. Every little bit helps keep this incredible mission going.
So let's end with this thought. Common Roots Farms started with a question about how one person can find a meaningful day, and they found a beautiful answer. But their story leaves us with a new question, one for all of us to think about. What would our own communities look like if we all made it a priority to grow not just food, but friendships and purpose for absolutely everyone?